So we're out of my studio today, and I have the pleasure of talking to Valerie Parv, who's in Townsville and has just completed a workshop with us. So thank you so much for being here today, Valerie.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. It's been an absolute blast. It's a fabulous group.
Yeah, it's been an absolutely brilliant workshop, and I know there were a lot of light bulb moments for many of us, myself included.
Good.
So I really appreciate that. There's a lot of information and experience that you've shared with us today that we don't normally pick up on in workshops and these sorts of things. So I really do appreciate you coming all this way too.
It was a long way, but the light bulb moments are what I live for. I just adore it when somebody's been wrestling with a writing problem and suddenly some exercise we're doing has given them the key to how they can work their way out of it.
That's it.
I don't tell anybody how to write. I give them tools that help them to write.
Absolutely. And like you were saying, there are no right or wrong ways of writing. It's what works for you.
Yeah, totally. I'm very suspicious of anybody who says this is how you write.
Yes.
Because there's only what works for the individual. By all means, try whoever's suggesting, try their process, see if it helps you, see if there's any part of it that helps you, or try my process, because I can only really speak from my own first-hand experience. But a lot of things I do work and I use them in my own writing. And if they're helpful to somebody else, well, that's fantastic.
That's it. And you've been in the industry for 41 years. So tell us about that.
Well, I think that's not a bad achievement since I'm only 39.
Yes, absolutely.
That works for me, yeah. Well, my story's sticking to it.
So how did you come about being published?
Oh, that was I suppose, typical sort of a journey, only I didn't know it because we had no Google and no Facebook and nobody to tell me that this is how it works. All I did was what I still commend to new writers, which is write the book you can't find on the shelves. And I started out, I was writing non-fiction books, my favourite, of course, being the How to Do Your Own Plumbing book. My first published book ever was Growing and Using Herbs.
Oh, wow.
So I was writing, all I wanted to do was make a living as a writer and not have a day job.
Yep.
So that meant writing what publishers were asking me to write. And I would give a publisher 6 ideas that I thought I could do, and they'd come up with idea number 7, and we'd like you to do that. So it was the plumbing book was the death of me, though, because I thought I can't keep writing stuff like this. It was helpful, it was practical, but it was soul-destroying. So I wanted to write something that I actually wanted to write and still make a living. And at that time, the most accessible publisher was Harlequin Mills and Boon. And I read myself crazy because just to see what was out there and how it was done. And first you read the book for analysis and for story, and then you analyse what's working. And that was how I approached it. And I thought, well, what are they not covering? And I think I was looking for strong heroines right back then.
Excellent. Did you set them in Australia or were they?
Oh, yes.
Yep,
Yeah,
they were Australians.
because the Australian backgrounds, particularly, it's not true of all genres, but the romance market, Australia is a very popular place to set a book because to a lot of the international markets it's somewhere really special and magical.
Yes, that's brilliant. So was that the Mills and Boon out of London?
Yes.
Yes, and how did it sell overseas?
Better than I ever realised because like most publishers they didn't tell you anything about print runs, they still don't, but you can find out a lot of stuff through the internet, but at that time you had no idea. And I remember, it's a very sneaky way to start, I wrote my first book and they wanted to read it, and yes, they would look at it, and then time went on and on and on, and so I thought I was getting a bit antsy, and I thought, well, I need to know if it's kill or cure. And so I wrote a very diplomatic, being an advertising writer to start with helped, I wrote this very diplomatic letter saying, I have got some more ideas for more books. I realise you're still considering my first book, but if you want me to wait a little longer, that's fine, but can you tell me whether I should think about sending you something else? And they fell for it.
Oh, brilliant.
So next I got the editorial letter, and of course they always start the same way, and they still do. Oh, we love your book, it's wonderful, it's timeless, it's this and that, but, and then there's probably 3 or 4 pages of buts.
No.
Yeah, well, that's how the business goes, and you just learn to live with it.
So how many Mills and Boon did you write for them?
I think I did 50. I got my 50th book pen. All the other books were different kinds of writing.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. And then you moved to a different publisher? How did that transition?
Oh, I've been all over the place with publishers. I suppose the advantage, if there is such a thing that I had, was I'd already worked with a lot of publishers. I had 20 non-fiction books up in print before I even started, but that's when the plumbing book was supposed to be the 21st, and it was so hard. So I decided that, I need to do something else. But they were done for people like Paul Hamlin and Rigby and different publishers.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's excellent. So you also are now doing these workshops like we did today, and you also do the First Monday mentoring via your website.
Yeah, it took me a long time to blog because I thought there's so much out there. I didn't want to just add to the chaos of voices in people's heads. And then I realised what wasn't being said, which is the reality of being a writer. Because it's all very wrist on forehead glamour, but there are lots of sides. Like nobody talks about the fear that writers feel.
Yes.
And the more likely you are to succeed, the more fearful it's a process.
Yes.
If you've ever read that book called The Imposter Phenomenon, that's what I see. And I don't see it in writers who are not going to go very far.
Yeah.
So I associate it with success.
Yes.
But nobody was telling anybody that.
Yes. Oh, phew. Excellent. So also as part of the RWA, there is an award, the Valerie Parv Award. I know you've had a lot to do with the Romance Writers of Australia, but tell us about how the award came into being.
The award, like I said earlier in the workshop, that it's very hard to have an award named after you when you're not dead. But it was a great honour. It started out when we had a chapter of Romance Writers of America in Australia, and I was asked to judge their writing contest annually, which I did for about 3 years, and then they said, can we call this after you? And I thought, well, if you really must. So I wasn't going to argue. It was a great honour then. But then that chapter folded, and a year or so later, Alison Stewart, who was then president of RW Australia, came and said, well, we'd like to take that award over. Oh. And by then I'd already committed to mentoring the winner for the year they held the award, which was probably not smart. But I must admit, the winners are a remarkable group of people.
Brilliant. So let's name drop. I know Rachel Bailey and Michelle Summers.
Erica Hayes, Bronwyn Parry.
Yes.
I probably shouldn't go through the entire list because there's a lot of them. But Michelle Summers, I don't know if you've read her one.
Yes.
She's fabulous. They're all fabulous.
They're
all talented, and they are all different.
And they call themselves your minions.
Oh, that was their own idea. Long before the movies came out, we had to call them something. I mean, Valerie Parv Award winner is a bit of a mouthful. So I think it might have been Erica or one of the bunch. One of them brought me a miniature stockwhip to keep them all in order. Because every year at the RWA National Conference, we have a Minions breakfast.
Yes.
Where we all swap information on. We had one of our winners come out from Ireland this year, which was super. So they all come if they can.
Yes. Yes, I always come and you're always having breakfast.
With tiaras, remember?
With tiaras.
We have tiaras.
I want to be a minion.
You're not the only one I've heard that. So you're published, so you don't qualify anymore.
I did try.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. I should have a sort of an assssociate minion category.
That would be great.
Minions might object. They think they're very exclusive people.
They do. I don't blame them.
No, they're all gorgeous.
So some of the other awards that you've been awarded in the past, so the Australian Society of Authors have given you...
Yes, the ASA medal, which is this gorgeous piece of jewellery, hand-carved in the Kimberley on pearl, mother of pearl. Right. Yeah, that was a complete surprise and so wonderful because it's given for your long-term involvement in the industry and benefit to writers. Brilliant. It's a peer award, which is really special. And I didn't think it could get any better than that.
Yes.
But then I got the letter saying we'd like to give you a member of the Order of Australia.
That's spectacular.
Which was just beyond anything I'd ever imagined because I do what I do because I love it.
Yeah. Not
out of any expectation. It was partly for the mentoring work.
Yeah. But
also for contributions to the Australian writing.
So
that's my little
happy
day.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's the one we're supposed to wear. I forget way too often. There's a huge, beautiful medal that you can wear, but it's all very prescribed. You can wear one on like the Anzac Day ambassador, the Australia Day ambassador thing. That's the full-on medal, and I think Anzac Day is the other day when you can wear it, or vice-regal occasions.
Oh, wow.
So you get about 4 different medals, and they're all for very specific occasions.
Oh my gosh. So you have to remember which one to wear which day.
And you don't dare get it wrong because that's insulting the Queen.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable. You've got to live up to this award.
Did you ever get a letter from her?
Not from her, but it's funny how it's done. I got a letter because being English born, I know that you don't ever say no to the Queen.
No.
So that's part of protocol. So if you're invited to something, you say, yes, I will not come, sort of kind of in a nice roundabout way. But they send you a letter feeling you out before you get the official invitation. So it's kind of like the letter says, if we gave you an AM, would you accept it? And so on and so on. And of course, I'm not mad enough to say no. So I was just so excited about it. I was beside myself for quite a few days. I was insufferable, I think, for a few days.
That is spectacular. So the books that you're writing nowadays, so you've got your romance, obviously, which started with the Mills and Boone, and you're also branching out into science fiction as well with your Beacon series. So tell us about that.
Oh, I guess like any writer, I like to try new things. I like to push myself and see if I can actually do these things, which sometimes works better than others, but with the Beacons worked very well. I actually started writing the first book as part of an MA group with QUT.
Yeah.
And that was because we were all multi-published. There were 10 of us and we all had to have a long writing record. So we were just so fabulous together. You really were stretched by your colleagues. So the first of my sci-fi, the Birthright, Beacon's Birthright, that was done for that degree. And which I got, thank you. I don't want to go through that again. Although I am seriously considering a PhD. I don't know what planet part of my head lives on. Because really, stop already. But anyway, I had enough fun doing the MA, and then I got on to the Beacons. Really got me excited because I've been a Trekkie since forever. I mean, William Shatner is one of my muses, far and away.
Yeah.
He's such an amazing man. I've met him a couple of times and just admire him so much. Not just, I mean, Captain Kirk is gorgeous, there's no doubt, and there's nobody else Captain Kirk for me. But my real admiration is for William Shatner as an actor, a philanthropist, and a writer. Absolutely. Just an amazing person. I use some of his mottos. One is say yes to everything, as you can probably know. And the other is that you just say, I'm not tired.
Yeah.
Because the more you say, I'm so tired, the more you become tired.
That's true.
And that's, I figure, he's 86, he's got 20 years, no, 39, you must remember that. So he's got a few years up on me, but the fact is that saying I'm not tired to yourself is very, very good advice.
Power of positive thinking.
Absolutely, which is another thing I've been a fan of all my life.
Absolutely.
So that's so I started writing the sci-fi books with no real publisher or idea of where they would go. And the Birthright came out with a small press in America, which is what I wanted, but they weren't able to sustain the whole series. Right. So I had to talk to Pat McMillan, who have Momentum, their digital imprint, the lovely Joel Nahum, who's gorgeous. And he took on the series, which nobody had looked at until then. And so they're up on their website and on Amazon. They're the e-books primarily.
Yes.
But I was very excited by them because I got to do things I'd never done. Again, pushing myself completely crazy.
Yes.
So that was my sci-fi series, and I've written some movie scripts, one of which I plan to turn into a novel.
Wow.
Because I've novelised some of my books into scripts, but I have never gone the other way, and it's a completely different process.
Yes, I guess.
So that's going to be a challenge and quite interesting.
Yeah. So have any of your movie scripts been turned into movies?
I've done documentaries,
right.
But the problem with movie scripts is financing.
Yes.
And the one that I'm going to turn into a novel, it fell at that hurdle. We just couldn't get the budget. The global financial crisis has not really abated in that area. So we never got to the finance stage. We got money for the scripting and for some of the process, but to actually complete it, to make it happen. So what I'm hoping is that doing the novel will maybe kickstart the movie.
Yes.
So with any luck.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, yes.
I think that's probably everyone.
I type with my fingers crossed a lot of the time.
That's a good idea. And you've also got two craft novels out. So you've got Heart and Craft and The Art of Romance Writing.
Yeah, plus The Idea Factory.
And The Idea Factory.
Which is my all-time favourite book. They were all done by Alan and Unwin.
Brilliant. That's another one I'll have to add to my list. I have read
hard to find now because it's technically out of print.
Yes.
I have to do something with it, but one of these days.
We'll need to get
in my spare time.
Yes. We'll need to get them put on print on demand. That's fantastic. So in Heart and Craft, you got some other writers to help you write that book. So was that a bit exciting?
Oh, it was wonderful because the time that I was doing it was a very low point in my life. I was newly widowed and writing anything was almost beyond me for quite some time. But being me, I had to do something. So I thought, well, how do you write a book when you don't want to write a book? You get your best friends. It's like, the old thing of let's put on a show. And so I thought, well, because so many of the writers that I know are getting on a bit. And I thought, if they don't put their stories down, it'll never be retold.
Right.
So I had people like Helen Biancan and Robin Donald, and amazing, Anna Jacobs was part of that. So it was just amazing to work with these people. And because I asked them basically, how did you get started and what's your best take on the craft? And they all have fascinating stories of how they got started, and it proves that it's never been easy at any stage. And they also, to make it a true craft book, I separated it into various things like character and the writing life, and had them each write something about that. So that was a very happy process.
Yeah, and it turned out brilliantly. I really enjoy that book.
Thank you.
I love hearing about other people's experiences, and one of the great things about being able to podcast is I get to rack people's brains.
Yeah, might as well make the most of it, as long as it doesn't keep you from your own writing.
Yes.
That's the key thing.
So you've got an agent too. How long have you been working with her, and how does that relationship work for you?
It's a great relationship. Yeah. At first I found her completely intimidating, but she's a balance for me because I'm not the least bit intimidating. So Linda's been fabulous. She came through the entertainment industry. She worked with Harry M. Miller originally and on Lindy Chamberlain's book. So she had this interesting background, and we had a meeting. We discussed how we could work together, and that was 23 years ago.
Wow.
And most recently, at the Canberra Writers Festival, we did a joint session about how we work together.
Fantastic. And she's an editorial agent as well?
She wasn't when she started.
Right.
That was a quality even she didn't know she had.
Wow.
Because she was so used to representing celebrities and being out there so much in the entertainment world that it never occurred to either of us that she would actually edit my books. And in fact, initially, she was editing my short stories.
Right.
Because if I had to find homes for my short stories, I probably would never have done so. I'd write them, but that would be the end of them. Linda had them in Woman's Day and Woman's Weekly and all over the place.
Oh, that's fantastic. Wow. So as well as writing the full-length novels, do you write novellas and do you still write short stories nowadays?
Short stories, unfortunately, there is no market.
Yeah.
Because all of the magazines now have gone over to celebrities and reality stuff that is, I don't know whether it's reader-driven or whether it's, it must be, I suppose, because they do the market research. But just the magazines that once published fiction very rarely do now.
Yes.
So that's not something, there was a magazine called Living, which a friend of mine was editing, and she said, oh, why don't you do some short stories for us? And I got my first cover credit in Living, because there I was on the front cover of her magazine. So that was fun for a bit, because I like doing short stories. I like the twist in the tail ones.
Yes, every now and then I hear that they're going to make a comeback, but I've never actually seen the comeback happen.
Well, I think it's going to come back in a different way.
Yes.
I think it's going to come back on phones and iPads and online.
Yes, well, I have heard now a railway station somewhere in Europe and then also in San Francisco, I think I'm right, where there's a vending machine and you can put in $5 or whatever it is and get a short story printed out.
Love it. Where can I contact
I know.
This is something new. I have to try.
I will get the details. We were chatting about it the other day. That's awesome.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. As one market moves on, there's always something new coming up, and that's one I hadn't heard of. Yeah. Although my books were sold on mobile phones in Japan probably a decade or more ago.
Wow.
So it was real pioneering stuff then.
Yeah, and there is definitely that move. Like we've had Kindles for a while, but now from everything I'm hearing about, especially the independently published people, they're focusing on those mobiles, especially in India when they can get them for $5 or whatever. Yeah. And that's what people are reading on. They're reading on their digital
But just look around you. If you're on any sort of public transport or in any sort of group, people are looking at their phones and they're looking at a book.
They are.
So I have no worries about the future of the book. We just have to make sure we're part of it.
Absolutely. I actually get criticised sometimes because I let my son use his iPad and he's 9. And they think he's playing games. He's actually reading his Kindle.
Well, that's it. And then people don't seem to realise that you can have that app for your ebooks on virtually any device.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, kudos to you because he's reading.
He is. He's reading. He loves it.
And you monitor it, obviously.
I do. He's got my account.
Well, keep an eye on things. That's good.
It. So, like I was saying, you've done 41 years in the industry, so the Kindle would have been one of those big changes that have come about. Independent publishing would have been another thing. Has there been anything else that's been quite traumatic?
Oh, look, there's something new almost every week. I agree with you. The Kindle, I was a sort of an early uptake person because I have 600 books on my Kindle at the moment. Because I found out actually that the lady I'm looking at doing the PhD with has written a book about genre islands.
Wow.
And since a lot of my books have been set on islands, I want to find out what the academic take on it is, what she's researched and found out.
Oh, fantastic.
So look, I brought that with me for my travels.
Yes, excellent. And do you read quite widely throughout lots of different genres?
Yeah, I think any writer has to read widely. If you just stick to your own field, you end up writing about writers.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm interested in so many things. I think most writers are.
Yeah, excellent. And do you still have a daily writing routine? Do you write so many words a day or so many hours a day or anything like that?
Depends who's listening.
Yep.
To the media, well, your media in this instance. Yes, I write 9 to 5 faithfully. I take meal breaks and that's it. I write every day and I write a certain number of words every day and it's all complete absolute nonsense. That's it. Because the muse doesn't work that way. I try and keep up a regular practice because otherwise you get rusty.
Yes.
And your muse forgets how to do this. It's like a muscle. You've got to work it. So, yeah, I'm fairly try and be consistent, but there's so much going on in life that it's hard to have it. Like, this is how to do it. I mean, I'm with John Lennon when he says, life is what happens while you're making other plans.
That's right.
There's certainly a writer's life because you're writing for a publisher and suddenly that publisher isn't there anymore.
Yes.
Or the industry's done a complete about-face. I mean, how can you plan that?
Yes, it is. It's an interesting time to be a writer, but there's definitely still turmoil there, I feel. Yes.
Oh, there's turmoil, but it's good turmoil for the writers because it's opening up opportunities. Like publishers who used to run what they call their slush piles, which is towering piles of books they'll eventually get around to read and reject. And I mean, because 1 in 1,000 would be what they want. So they may never read them all.
Yes.
So these days, they're the ones looking to writers to supply content. And this is a complete about-face in the power situation.
Yes.
And I think it's given writers back a little bit more of the power.
Yes, which is brilliant. Fantastic. And so what kind of advice would you give to our listeners, the ones starting off and still starting on that first book? Is there anything in particular, like joining an association?
Oh, absolutely. You need to find your tribe. And belonging to the writers and publishers in Townsville, where we were today, any writers group, the Australian Society of Authors is probably for the more career writer, but there's also the Fellowship of Australian Writers, which is it's national right across Australia, and the FAW particularly cater for new writers. So there's a resource of some kind. And when I moved to the town I live in now, and first thing I did was contact the president of the local writers group, and she said, have you done any writing? And I said, a bit. Because it's not something you want to wave like a flag. But anyway, when I got to the first meeting, she Googled me and gone to my webpage, and it was like, oh, my goodness.
Oh, gosh.
But I don't worry about that. I mean, I'm a writer. There are plumbers out there who are very good at what they do, and I just happen to be lucky in that I can do what I love.
Yeah, brilliant. So, finding your tribe.
Yeah, find your tribe. Yeah. But above all, write.
Right.
Because that gets missed sometimes. That's what Story Magic was all about today, was to beyond social media, beyond marketing, beyond publishing, the essence is write a good story that readers want to read.
That's it. And write what you love too. So.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you don't like what you're writing, it shows in the writing. Like lots of people think, romance novels, nothing to it, I'll dash one off. And I say, go right ahead, because I know what they're in for. But if you're not passionate, and it's true of sci-fi, it's true of virtually any writing, if your heart isn't in it, it's not going to work. But if you can bring your passion to it, you increase your chances enormously.
That's brilliant. So where can we find you on social media? You're on Twitter?
I'm on Twitter at Valerie Parv, all one word, and I'm on Facebook.
Fantastic.
I think I'm the only Parv out there.
Yep.
So it's not hard to find. But if you want links to anything, including my blog, you go to my webpage, valerieparv.com.
Excellent. And that's Parv, P-A-R-V.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so so much again for coming up to Townsville and for doing this workshop today. We really appreciate it.
It's been absolutely fabulous. The best group I've had in a long time.
Oh, thank you so much. And we will see you again next year at the Romance Writers of Australia
Most
Conference.
certainly you will.
Thank you.